Hey, everybody. Welcome to Buzzing About Romance. I am Becky, and joining me for this episode is Jenni. Hi, Jenni.
Hey, Becky.
And Leah. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Becky.
Um, did you tell Elliot that it was...
Yeah, he's still playing, so if you hear like random boy noises, it's just him on his video games.
As long as he doesn't like grunt loudly, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
You never know what's gonna come out.
So funny. I love
Like
it.
he knows, but he's in the middle of a game, and if you quit the game early, it totally ruins your score. And
It
like
does.
so,
And then you can get banned and there's
and then you can get
yeah.
banned, and it's like it's a
Right.
whole
And your
thing.
team can
Yeah.
kick you. Like, I get it. I get
Yes.
it.
It's fine.
Yeah. Although, as a mom, one of the most frustrating things having a gamer as a child is when you call them to, like, I don't know, come get their plate of dinner. And you hear, I can't pause. Or
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a round.
Yeah.
I don't.
Just happened tonight here.
Did it really?
Yes.
Oh,
like,
that
dinner
happens
is
all
ready.
the time.
Dinner is ready. You're not
But
eating at this point.
I'm gonna do one more round or one more game, and 45 minutes later, it's still going.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you were told you needed to stop. He's like, but I was just playing one more game.
Yeah. It's so frustrating as a parent. It's like, there are so many times where I'm like, I'm just turning off the internet. I wonder what happens if the power just reset all of a sudden, right?
I think there'd be mutiny. Now, I will say he does play with his friends, so like
Yeah.
he's having social time while
Yeah.
he's playing. So like
Yeah.
I and my sister-in-law and I were talking about this the other day. We're like, we want to encourage that, but it's a lot of screen time, but they're hanging out. So
Yeah.
it's like,
It's hard, yeah.
when is it too much?
But you know what, though? I also can't say anything about like online friend or gamer friends because some of my best friends are my online
I mean,
friends.
This is true.
I'm just saying.
Hence the reason we're like, is like, when is it too much?
You know, like,
And we usually just let it go.
right. It's
Yep.
just, yeah.
True. That's
Because it honestly, like, it is a very different world from when we grew up. And like I said, like I told her, it's like, had it been, I'll just say 20 years ago, because I don't want to age myself that much tonight. Like, we would just go to a friend's house
Right.
and
And you'd
basically
play,
do the same thing.
right.
you have a LAN
would just-
party.
You would just sit next to them and play video games.
Nope. I get it.
So,
But also, I would not have any friends or social life without onlineness. So,
well, this
Yeah.
I would have
Yep.
limited friends.
It was on the other side.
anyway, so it is another Wednesday Sip and Discuss episode. Our theme for the month of March is all the books Becky wants you to read. Because you know what? I'm the boss.
True.
Nobody wanted to make a decision this month, so we were
No,
left.
part of it was I have been telling you for years that this is your podcast. You can do what you want with
True.
it. And so when we were trying to decide, we were like, why don't you just pick what you want us to read? Because it is your podcast and you can do what you want.
It is. So, this first book for this month is That One Regret by Carrie Elks. This was the community vote. I put 2 books up for consideration. I don't even remember what 2 books they were,
Oh, really?
but I had
There was a vote.
Leah doesn't vote.
I will admit I usually do not actually click a vote for anything.
I'll look it up. It was either That One Regret by Carrie Elks, Reckless Faith by Nissa Catherine, or Mansplain by Vanessa Vale.
All good choices.
All good. I didn't feel like we would go wrong with any of those choices.
Mm-mm.
And
I
again,
think I've read all of those ones too. So
we've kind of done you like bad the past like few months. So
Well,
we
but
have done her a little dirty.
but also the same. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've picked some books this last couple months that I'm like, ooh, what were we
That's true,
thinking?
because you did pick the
Yeah.
JC Burton book.
I did pick the J.C. Burton book, and then we had the redirect on the Pippa Grant book.
Oh yes.
Because
Forgot
I
about that
really
one.
liked the first book in that series, but the second book was not
Oh yeah.
what it needed to be. But I'm still blaming one person for the Megan Quinn book, but she says it wasn't her. Anyway. Okay, so that one, Regret by Carrie Elks. Who wants to tell us all the things?
I got it.
Okay, give it to us, Jenni.
Release date is August 31st, 23. Tropes are age gap, small town, second chance, forbidden, taboo, next gen, one night stand. Series name is The Heartbreak Brothers Next Generation, and this is book 1. It's a series of interconnected standalones. The point of view is dual third person. Put out percentage is 9%. Audio narrator is Ryder Sol, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited, and the audiobook is in Hoopla. And I think somebody found it somewhere else too, but
They might have found it on Anyplay. I think Lindsay still does Anyplay. It's Tantor is the publisher. So Tantor publishes wide. So it would have been on Audible, it would have been on Hoopla, probably in Libby. It's one of those nice things for authors that an audiobook is a subright that you can sell to another publisher. So when you have an author like Carrie Elks, who is a Kindle Unlimited author, one of the nice things about letting Tantor upfront the cost on publishing of an audiobook, it then can be released everywhere. And she's making the same residuals. And I do believe that like the commission payouts and stuff like that from Audible and the listen payouts and stuff like that are different than if you independently had published that book as an audiobook. And then, Audible has this whole exclusive thing that if you leave it there, you get higher royalties and such. So it was in Hoopla for me.
I did this audio. This is a reread, so I was listening to the audiobook today just to refresh myself. I enjoyed this narrator.
Yeah, I feel like they are a fairly even voice. Like it's that mid-register, so they could do the female and the male. And I believe that Ryder is female.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but they could do both sides, and it didn't feel stunted one way or another.
No, it sometimes didn't. It was a nice flow.
Yeah.
I did have to speed her up a little bit more than normal. I think I'm usually at like 1.7 and I was at almost 2.25 because she does have a slower cadence to her voice, but she's slow the whole way. It's not like she's slow and then fast. Like she is like continual, like in the way she speaks. And it was too slow for me, but I didn't find it frustrating. I just couldn't focus on it when it was slower.
Yeah. Jenni, you read Hearts and Creek. So this is the second gen. Had you read this one before, or was this your first read?
This was my first read of this one. That's why I asked for like a family tree, because I was like, oh my gosh, all these people had kids and I don't know.
There's a lot of kids.
Yeah. So if you are looking for the family tree, it is, I did drop the graphic in our Sip and Discuss channel in the Buzzing About Romance Discord. So if you need that reference, it is there. So it's really interesting because my favorite books in the Hearts and Creek, the first generation, is book 1 and book 5, which is Becca's book, Grace's mom. Yeah. That was one of my favorites because, they were enemies to lovers and they just did not like each other. But as we went through this book, I really loved Grace's dad in his book. Him and Becca, I really liked them.
Daniel, right? Yes.
Yeah, Daniel. The third act in this book.
Well, and see, I did not read the original Hearts and Creek series. Like I did not read the first gen. I was not a fan of her parents in the third act. Well, not so much her mom. Like her mom was fine. Like she just was not like, I would have been more reactive than she was, but that's a me thing. But like, I did not like her dad at all. Yeah. So whether you read first gen or not, you are not going to like him in that third act because he is a douchebag of epic proportions.
Okay, so let's talk about this. This is one of those small town romance. First of all, Jenny, before I get into all of that, it's third person.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about this like as I started reading.
Because the Heartbreak Brothers is third person.
Yeah, I think she writes it in a way where, because I struggle with like the third person and it's a lot of like internal thoughts and like it's in third person. So how do you know like what that person's thinking? So I think she writes it in a really good way that it's flexible. Like
Yeah.
it's something you would observe the person doing.
There's a lot of show, not tell.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the way to say it.
Like her book is mostly like active, like there's not a like reactive kind of stuff. It's like
Yeah,
they're
like people aren't,
journeying the whole time. Like
yeah, they're
Right.
not sitting there and having like reflective
There's no like
monologues.
internal monologues that go on for
Right.
6 or 7 pages,
Yeah.
which we do get in third person often, and it starts to get kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
So this one, I think the way that Carrie Elks writes, she does write a lot of dialogue, really good dialogue. And she is much more about showing us the characters through their actions, through their facial features, through their responses, than telling us through internal dialogue. So I was curious about that as I was reading it, because I love Carrie Elks, and we all know I don't have a problem switching between third person head hopping, third person duel, first person. Like it doesn't. I'm reading a book, but I know that you've expressed, especially recently, as we've done a bunch more third person, that it's hard for you.
It is. Yeah, that has been a statement I've made like out loud, and my husband's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But like, yeah, I just get frustrated with like, you can't know everything this person's thinking. Or I feel like sometimes authors struggle with like saying it in first person, but it's supposed to be in third person. Like they make statements of like, I felt blah blah blah, but
Instead of just saying it out loud.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, it becomes an unreliable narrative when they mix things up like that.
yeah.
And
it just, that I struggle, that's my personal struggle. Like I like, because then I struggle with like who said what, and like, yeah.
But I don't feel like Carrie Elks has that problem. She has
No, she
crafted
does
and
not.
perfected this. And I do know that she's moving towards first person. Her new series that's going to launch in April is all first person. And I think the Salinger brothers.
I was gonna say, aren't the Salingers in first person
They
too?
are. They are. So, but
well, and we are seeing more authors who have written in third person, like either doing like first and third, depending on the series. Like they'll go back and forth, or just like transitioning over to first.
Yeah.
One of the authors I think of is Kilby Blades, because her first Smarty Pants book was in third person, and I was like, oh my gosh, this might be like the first Smarty Pants book I can't read. But it read really well.
I
But
love
then
that
she
book.
wrote her second book in that series in first.
Yeah. And I do think that the current reader prefers a first person. I do think that the current reader prefers, not me.
It's a rare occasion where I see a reader say, I don't like first person, but I don't like third person a lot.
And next week, you all are going to hate me. So we are just going.
Wait, what is next week? Oh,
Whitney, my love. And it is third person. It is head hopping. It is multiple points of view.
I like that. But that's just me.
I started reading it last night and I couldn't put it down. Anyway.
I think my chaotic brain just really loves it when it gets chaotic.
To me, it feels more like a movie with like voiceover kind of vibe.
I saw this thing on, I don't know if I was on the TikTok or if I was doom scrolling on Instagram, but it was like this person who's like, what do you mean when you read a book, you don't see it playing out like a movie in your head?
Some people don't, like, it's just blank.
It's
I
the
know, like
whole
I know that, but
yes.
she was like shocked that like there were people that like actually read books and it's quiet
But you
in
tell
their
me to picture an
heads.
apple. I picture an apple, the depth, I see the shine.
Oh yeah.
Mike does not. Like, he doesn't
He's a
visualize like that.
computer nerd. He likes ones and
Yeah,
zeros.
I was like, maybe he sees it in binary.
Maybe he sees it in
He
binary.
might see it in binary.
He might.
That's actually an interesting question. I should ask my brother that because he is a computer guy.
So this is also one of the things that I love about Carrie Elks is she gives a small town. So
Hmm.
this book actually has some heavier topics in it a
Yeah.
little bit, you know, like coming to terms with returning home to the place that you didn't think was your home. Um, but
Yeah.
this town is so fun and quirky. I mean, Michael's mother is ill. He's home to help with his mother.
Yeah.
And he's come back to a place that he never felt like he belonged.
Right.
Grace is returning home with her tail between her legs, feeling a little rejected and like she didn't succeed. But the
Well, I
town
think
is,
hers was more situational because
yeah.
of the ex.
But this,
And she's disappointed in herself because
yeah.
she let something like that happen.
But this town is so quirky. And we get so many Chairs moments. And Chairs is
Hmm.
my favorite.
I would really like. I mean, I wouldn't even have to participate in chairs. Like, I just need to sit
Yeah.
and watch
Watch
people
the
execute.
scene where
Could you
Michael's.
imagine the delight of the people watching that you would get every
Right?
single weekend?
Yes.
Like, I would love that.
Well, like,
Because we all know I'm not the most social person, but I could people watch with the best of them.
well, like when his mom sets him up with her nurse, like the secondhand embarrassment I felt for the nurse. But then I'm like, I totally would have been like trying to lean closer and closer to hear what everyone was saying. Anyway. But I think it's really, I like that when we have a contemporary romance, because this is contemporary,
Yeah.
but it has this quirky small town with these rom-com elements.
Hmm.
And it does take away some of the heaviness of
Yeah.
the story when you have this town that's set up in chairs and
I think chairs makes the like everybody and everyone else's business like more believable,
Hmm.
yeah.
if that makes sense. Because like you're seeing it play out on the weekend, like, and
Yeah.
then like Monday morning, you're like,
Were you at
Well,
chairs?
and
Did
it's
you
one
see
of
that?
those things where it's like it's bringing the generations together. Because, like, on the first chairs that she goes to, well, that Grace goes to when she goes back, it's like she's taking her, like, picking her great aunt up to go. So it's like there's multiple generations, like, conglomerating for this, like, weekly event. So it really, like, goes to show, like, how much care they have, like, Carrie Elks treats with the small town and the fact that, like, it's a very close-knit town. Like, yes, there's issues because it's a town and not everything's going to be
Yeah.
like hunky dory, but like I think that's the big thing is she kind of really like creates this safe environment for everybody there. It doesn't matter
Well,
like the
and you have
age.
the great aunt, you have,
Hmm.
you know, the parent generation, you have the kids, and then you have like Presley who's there with his young child.
Yeah.
Delilah. Yep. And she's in Presley's book is book 2. And I
Okay.
love it. Book 3 is so far my favorite, but anticipating book 4 in the coming weeks. So at least for me, you
I'm
all have
excited
to
for
wait.
book 4.
So let's talk about their meet cute because so as an editor, as a somebody that does I do the acquisitions for the agency and all of that stuff. One of the things that is often talked about is that hook in. That
Yeah.
moment that hooks the readers in and they need to know all about it. And man, does that first like 2-3 chapters hook you in. The meeting in the rain.
Really like the first like 3 pages, like
Yeah,
they
I
like
would agree.
the eye contact at like the cab in the rain, like just that whole scenario, like that really draws you in. It's like, how are they going to come back together? Because like that dude is like who it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how?
Well, and so you have that cab moment, and then
Yeah.
the bar moment, and her friends leave her.
Right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, oh, but then they have this wild, crazy night that was
Mhm.
super steamy and spicy, and an early pop. Yes, please give it to me.
Well,
Well,
but then it doesn't.
I enjoyed that they like got to know each other too. Like
They
Yeah.
it
did.
wasn't
Because
all
they
like
went to dinner, they like had conversation, and then they went back to the hotel.
Yeah.
But then she wakes up
And she's
and she
hiding behind
goes.
the bush and she's seeing her parents talk to her one night stand.
So,
How awkward.
but at
I
least she didn't see the parents or make eye contact with the parents. Like she hid behind the bush so she didn't have to have that awkwardness of it. But then she like realizes like who he is, and it's like, oh fuck.
yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, how's she gonna get out of that?
But it really does go to show like how separated he is from the family as a whole. Because I mean, yes, he is older, but like he left for college and then moved to London and basically has had no interaction with anybody
No.
in the entire family.
Well,
Like he's that separated from it.
And I think that the way she establishes that, well, yes, I did trope this as a taboo romance because
Yeah.
it plays into the third act. But
Mhm.
overall, because she gives us those lines of the clear separation,
Yeah.
almost generational separation, because I think the line is in the book, and I noticed it more this time than I did the first time I read it. Everyone's saying he's closer in age to her mom.
Yeah.
Like
than anybody else. And again, I think that line is in there 3 or 4 times.
it is.
Mhm.
And like speaking of the age and like the like how far is like too far, I really like that her friends had to like divide his age by 2 and like add 7, and I was
Uh-huh.
like
There's a formula to where the age gap is too
and then she's
much.
younger. Oh well,
But it's only a couple years, so it was
yes,
okay.
Yeah.
Like there's that like bell curve to it. It's like if you like fit in the equation, that's perfect. But if not, where does the curve stop?
And I like an age gap, and I didn't feel like, and maybe it's because she had left home, lived away in France, and wasn't like still under, like she had her own house. She wasn't living with her parents. I felt like their age gap wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Well, I've read bigger age gaps than this one, but I think part of the thing
We're not
was
talking
like,
about that, Daddy.
he was gone, but she was gone. Like even if she had stayed in Hartson Creek and grew up there and like was like had a career and things like that, the fact that he was not there for over like a good chunk of time, I don't think it would have read much differently. Like because like they didn't grow up together. Like he was 16 like when his book had like 15 or 16 in his book, and I'm
no, he's 16. He's 16 in his book.
Yeah,
he's
so
like a sophomore in
like when
high
his
school.
mom and Cam get together, like he's already 16 and like nobody else has gotten together or had babies. And so it's like he hasn't seen her since she's been like maybe 4 or 5.
Well, and I think that from the time distance, because Cam's book is the 3rd book.
Okay.
So the time difference from Cam's book to Becca's book, which is the 4th book, right?
Okay.
5th book. Is it 5? She's the 5th book.
But yeah, she's the last one.
They're after.
Yeah, her book is after, and it's several years after because the twins have already been born and they're 3 or 4 years old before.
So that in itself, like the fact like he was already at college basically when she was born, like there's no connection really. And the fact that he didn't come home, like you can clearly see like throughout the book, like he doesn't come home.
Yeah. Well, and I also, and this has been a kind of a hot topic in the last couple days because another Allie Hazelwood's coming out with an age gap book later this summer, and age gap is kind of a hot topic. Like, and some readers are like, "This is gross. This is yuck. I don't like this," and the rest of us are sitting here going, "Okay, don't read it. Then the book's not for you."
Yeah,
because the rest of us are like, "Yes, please."
I mean, I love an age gap.
We know.
I mean, and there's times it can be like
Icky.
not as palatable. Like it's,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the author and what their aim is.
I also think that this book is one because he's not her boss in any way. Like, he's not her
Right.
superior anyway. They really are on equal footing in the town again.
Mhm.
That I think that helps in this
Well,
particular
and
book.
that's the thing, like they have, aside from meeting at the hotel, like he is a sports agent in London. She works for the family distillery business.
Did you mind that there was 1 year between the one night stand and him coming to town?
No.
Do you feel like that time created any issues for you?
No, I think they covered it well because it like they were both kind of still hung up on each other, and I like that he addressed like, "Hey, I was looking for you," and she's
Mhm.
like, "Well, I changed my number."
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
and when
think,
he hands her the phone and says, maybe put your number in here and not change it this time.
Yeah.
well, and I think had it been, I mean, even if it had only been 6 months, like I don't think had it been a shorter gap of time, I think 6 months would have been the least amount of time that it would have made sense, like with the way the story played out. But like, I don't think a year was unheard of.
Yeah. And so within that age gap, I don't feel like either they didn't really get hung up on it for too long either. You know how sometimes we
Yeah.
get an age gap romance and one of the characters will be like, oh, but you're so much older. Or, you're so
yeah,
He
young.
was
like
at
all his back.
first. Like when they first meet, he was pretty hung up on it. But like once he gave into the connection, so to speak, like the age, it was an issue in this, like during the third act breakup. But aside from that, it wasn't really.
Only because her dad, friggin' asshole.
God.
Well, before we get there, I like the way that she pushed them together the second time.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just like that, like sneaking around and like we're not gonna
Yeah.
touch each other. Like there was a catalyst, like using the Ethan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The vet.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yes, that like
The vet, yeah.
sabotages her horse and
Well,
runs into walls
and then Sabrina, his half sister, you know, she gets
got wicked
drunk
wasted and was puking.
and she's like, just take me to Grace. And he's like, oh, I can't, you know.
He's like, I don't want to take you to Grace.
And I'm telling you, like,
that
the throw up moment in
that's
the
the thing,
car,
like, there's-
though, I just have to say, we've all had that. And if you haven't, I don't
you
know.
don't ever want it.
I don't know what's wrong with you. The rest of us had that at least once in our youth. I mean, come on.
I mean, I don't think oh no, I have.
yeah.
Yeah, we've all.
I was gonna say I don't think I personally have, but I have.
Oh, yeah.
I've also been the driver when it happens, and that's bad too.
I've never been the driver.
Jeremy has held the bucket, ate a cheeseburger, and drive like all at the same time.
That's nice. The one
Yeah,
time it
that is
happened to me,
talent.
I described to the girl it was my brother's girlfriend that was driving me. I explained to her what I had and what was on her car door.
I do that too.
Anyway, that was gross. Y'all don't need that. Okay. So, Michael, did the fact that he was divorced and going through the divorce, but he doesn't say it when he's in New York, and then the revelations that come out from that, did that bother you?
No, he made a comment, like a slight internal thing in the beginning, how he was just divorced.
Did he? I thought it was not.
Yeah.
No, he did
he?
not tell her.
Right.
But he, like his internal, like his POV.
Yeah. I think
There
like
was
when he's sitting at the bar.
like
Yeah,
he had
oh,
meant
okay.
there was something that like internally, one of the few times she was in his head, like about his divorce just getting finalized.
Okay.
Or I'm not sure exactly how it was worded, but it was definitely there.
Yeah, because then when Grace finds out, like she thinks that he was married when they were together, and he like clarifies that too. I like that they were very open about like confronting each other instead of like, well, I mean, she assumed that he punched Ethan, but that was like the telephone, small town.
Yeah.
gossip train.
But we've all
Well, and also she was
experienced
mad
that
about
though,
it.
too.
So
Yeah.
like she didn't want to hear him out at that point. So like her emotions were running high. Although there was one point like after when they broke up, like in the third act, and he's like, "You're acting like a child," and she's like, "Really? I'm the one who's acting like a child right now. Like, grow the fuck up, dude."
Yeah.
I
Well,
really enjoyed that because honestly, she is 25, but she was a very mature character. Like, and there was no like backslide in that. Like she had emotions and she had reactions, which I mean, who doesn't?
yeah.
And I think that was one of the things I really liked about her character the most is like even because like when her dad freaked out, like she had a little bit of a freak out as well, but then she iced him out
Yeah.
because she was mad at him because he had such a bad reaction,
So
which I
before
thought
we
was
talk
great.
about the third act, I have to talk about the almost getting, well, they did get caught by his brother Josh.
Yeah.
And I was like, the moment where she's like, first of all, who walks out to a hotel room where there's room service potentially coming in just your underpants? I mean,
Yeah, I was like, who did you think he was talking to?
right? Right? Like,
I looked it up just out of curiosity. Chapter 2, especially those that hadn't seen any action since his divorce last year, talking
okay.
about his nether regions.
Okay. Well, there we go.
So it was mentioned, just not to her.
But that leads to my next question. So sometimes, so this is a secret romance, right? Like they're
Yeah.
hiding, they're running around. You know, he does a lot of jogging at night.
He does.
Yeah, I
And
felt like they could have done better to hide it, but
Well, but he couldn't drive there. And
right.
it's not like they live far apart. So,
well,
I mean,
and
he needs his
he's like,
exercise
when
too.
he comes back and he's like, you know, I've been running, I can't go running for 3 hours. My mom will think something's up. Dude, your mom already
But this
thinks
is-
something's up. Like,
Right.
she's not that dumb.
But also, you're an adult. Like,
Yeah,
you're almost 40.
Right.
Your mom is not going, she might question it, but she's not really going to question it at the same time.
So them getting caught.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm really shocked that none of the cousins picked up on it sooner.
right.
Presley does a little bit. Like when they're at the bar at that show, he kind
Well,
of
and
like,
Sabrina kind of does too.
does she though? Because see, to me, Sabrina's kind of
She
a
made a
little bit of
couple
a,
little comments like through like the
Yeah,
dialogue that like, but she could have cared less. Like
yeah,
I think that's the big thing is I think that some of the cousins had inklings that stuff was going on just by like watching, but none of them cared.
no.
yeah. Sabrina's out there. Like,
I really can't
I
wait
like
for her book
Sabrina.
though. I cannot wait for her
Are we
book.
getting her book? Because I know she's not writing all of them.
No, she is writing all of them.
Oh, she is
Oh.
writing.
Everybody will get a book. Every second
That
gen
is-
will get a book.
That is
I've been
really-
promised this, so. But
Well,
I'm
Carrie
really
Elks, we're holding you to
secretly,
it.
I'm secretly hoping that one of these is going to be a Winterville Hearts and Creek crossover
crossover.
because they already exist in the same world. So,
Yeah.
anyway, listen.
I mean, they visited.
Book 1
Before.
of Winterville, Gray goes and performs a concert
Yeah.
at the Candy Cane Theater. So, just saying. And then, well, I'll get on to her next series.
Anyway.
I'm very excited about too because there's a
You're not
Salinger
allowed to talk about that
crossover,
one yet, though.
but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet, not till April. Okay, so in this third act, Michael is dumb.
Oh yeah.
They're those like most like
And I was looking at
He's a
reviews
total-
today. So many people DNF'd at 91% because of how dumb he
Oh,
was. Like I saw
so dumb.
several. And I'm like, he was dumb.
Yeah.
He was very dumb. But Daniel made
I
me
think-
mad. Like ragey mad.
Oh, Daniel was the worst. Like, I mean, granted, he doesn't find out about them in the best way. So you realize, like, you understand that he's not going to have a good reaction, but then but it goes downhill
Yeah.
even more. It's like when you walk into your daughter's bedroom and you see a half naked dude there, that's one thing. But then to realize it is your brother's stepson, I mean, that can be a little shocking.
Yeah.
But then you're like the ultimate asshole. And it just keeps going.
Yeah. He just,
Because then you show up and tell him that he has to choose between being with Grace or Grace getting along with her family. It's
right.
like, well, you know what the dumbass is going to pick.
Right.
And again, I really think she did an excellent job of like explaining why he would make that choice.
Yeah.
Because of
Yes.
his past.
Well, and
Like,
it
He
adds,
is.
and it added to the emotion. So one of the things I think this book gives us is really good emotional depth and emotional stakes, right? Like I was sad for Michael. I loved his character in Cam's book, but I felt so sad for him when he talks about never feeling at home in Hudson Creek because so many others had found their space. And I think that's what made me so mad about Daniel because he came to the distillery not happy to be there.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
he went running it for his dad after his dad passed and he was pissed about it.
Yeah.
And he didn't like Hudson Creek, but then he found Becca and found home and found space. And you would have thought that he would have had some empathy for
Well,
for
but
Michael.
I think in his moment, like he was all emotion. He was not, there was no logic in any of it. Like it was just pure, this is my baby girl who is doing a dude who is like, who I know was a hot mess when he was a teenager, like, and then basically fucked off and disappeared. So I think a lot of it was emotion. He was an
snapped.
ass, like way, like totally out of like sorts. But like I think that it was emotionally driven, and so there was no logic because the timeline for when he catches them to when he gives the ultimatum is not even a full day. It's like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So like because when he and then Michael have that conversation after everything happens, and like Daniel acknowledges, like, I fucked up, like I reacted, I did not take a step back to think about it. And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's like, as much as I
Should
hate
have
his
listened to his
reaction,
wife.
well, that, yes. But also, like, it just really humanizes him in the sense where, like, he was a reactive person in that moment. Like, he punched the wall, and his wife was like, what are you doing? Like, you are not this person. And, like, but he didn't, he was so caught up in himself that he didn't think about anybody else around him.
Yeah. So one of the things real quick before we talk about the very ending and the grand gesture and kind of the full circle moment that happens here. So this is, kind of the forbidden, the taboo. And typically this is a trope that we see in darker romances, the gray to the dark, right? I like that this was explored within a contemporary, more in the light, less dark connotations. Even though they're sneaking around, it never feels like dark and angsty. I don't know. I feel like that is something that is kind of that next level of why I love Carrie Elks writing.
I think that's fair because it's, I don't, portrayed in a realistic way. Like you could see this happening where like I feel like the more the darker stuff is like, look, I'm not gonna, hopefully no one's kidnapping me, right? Like,
well, and no one's gonna, I don't have a stepbrother, but I'm fairly certain I'm not going to have sex with him. So,
right.
I mean, you never know.
So let's talk about how there's a little bit of poeticism, I would say, in this book. It starts in the rain, it ends in the rain. You know, so Carrie Elks has a poeticness to her romances. Grand gesture. Did Michael do enough to redeem himself.
I think so.
Yes.
I think she took him back sooner than she should have, but I think had they did the two full weeks, then I think that he would have, because it was the way he apologized to her when he showed up at the house. And I think that had that conversation, like he not said what he said, then I think it would have not felt as okay to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What
Yeah.
Jenny, do you think that he did enough
Yeah,
for redemption?
yeah. I mean, because he's also like emotionally driven at that point, right? Like, so, I mean, he could have thought it out a little more, but I think I'm more with Leah. Like, she should have maybe like.
I also think that they
Yeah.
had this year of pining. Like he was searching for her and she couldn't get him out. And I will say it didn't bother me that neither slept with anybody
I
else
was
in
gonna
that
ask.
year. It didn't.
See, I could have cared less about that one in this book.
There was because there was
It's
so
really
much
funny to hear the way you
mutual
brought it up.
pining that I felt like the ending and the quick acceptance made sense because
Okay.
they've already done all this distance
Yeah,
and time away.
I mean, yeah,
It's
I
not
think
that it didn't
just
make sense. I just think she gave in too fast.
right, and I think that's like different. Like, I mean, we're all reading the same book, but experiencing it differently. And when you explain it like that, like, yeah, like they've already been apart. Like
Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
done doing that.
Right. It's kind of like you think you're having like a big giant fight with your spouse and you feel like it's been hours but really it's only been 20 minutes and you're like just say you're sorry, and like then you move on and let it go.
Yeah. Or or you're like,
I
are
can't
you
let
mad
it
at me? And
go.
they're like, no. And you're like, you're not living in the same moment.
Right. Like at some point I have to just be like, okay, this fight was stupid. We both said things
Do
we
you
shouldn't have
though?
said.
Do you have to say that?
I
Or
mean,
do you
sometimes you
just
have to be the
dig on
adult,
it?
Leah.
I mean, did I have to like pretty much beat and punish my husband to say sorry because he had to be the one to be wrong? Yes, I did. But I got my I'm sorry and we can move on now.
I mean, he will always be the one that says sorry, not me.
And this
It's
is
actually
why
not true. I
Leah
will say I'm sorry.
is the mean one.
I sound so callous, but really, I do apologize when I am in the wrong, however few times that may be.
And there is a huge cast of characters. We have multiple generations. This is one of the bad things with these next gen series of books. If you haven't read book
But-
one or haven't read the first generation, sometimes the second gen, it can feel confusing because you're meeting all these characters. I think Carrie Elks
aside
does a good
from-
job, but I've read them all.
Aside from the fact that it was hard to keep track of who belonged to who, which I do that in smaller books too. So
Well, I do that in real life sometimes. So
well, also that. So but it didn't bug me because it wasn't like there were just all these random people who were like just showing like out of the woodwork. Like every interaction with the other family members, it made sense.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like with Presley and Marley and like we got these elaborate descriptions of them. We got little snippets into like where their stories are going to lead. Like Presley, we know he has a daughter, his wife passed away, like, and her name is Jade, but like
that book will take you around some corners.
Well, but anyway, but like
Just saying.
we get little Easter eggs essentially into like
And
where
you
their
do
books are
meet
going
his
to take
love
us.
interest in this book.
okay,
You do
I was
meet
gonna ask.
Yeah, it's who you think it is his
Okay.
love interest. And I'm excited for you to read that, Jenny, because I think that dynamic, there's some pieces in it that
Okay.
add to it. So, okay. Anything else we need to talk about in that one regret before I go to thumbs
This
up,
is
thumbs
totally me thing.
down?
So the first few times I read his whole name together, like Michael, what is it?
Evelyn.
Devlin.
Devlin.
I kept thinking his name was Melvin. And I'm like, who names their kid Melvin? Like, I seriously, for a whole day, thought his name was Melvin.
Can I say I appreciate that he's a Michael and he was called Michael?
Oh, I think
Yeah.
so.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of times you get Michaels and they go by Mike, but like, I mean, my Michael, like everybody calls him Mike, but me. So I appreciated the fact that like he was a Michael.
Yeah, and his brother calls him Mike, right? Like,
Yeah, Josh calls him
Yes.
Mike. Yeah.
Josh calls
Yeah.
him Mike.
Yeah. It's funny because now I call Mike Mike, but for a long time he was Michael. His grandmother called him Michael. She never referred to him as Mike. So that is, yeah.
Yeah, mine, like his mom does sometimes, but his dad is also a Mike, so it would get confusing. So that's why he was Michael a lot when he was younger. But yeah, I'm the only one who calls him that
I
now.
think
But
that's-
I like that.
Go ahead.
like my brother is Matthew, and like everybody calls him Matt, but like my dad absolutely refuses. Like will always be Matthew. And I'm just Jenni. I have never been
Anything but Jenni.
Jennifer.
Yeah.
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 One of
So
the
weird.
things I do love about Carrie Elks is she gives us really classic names for the characters.
Right.
And I do love that.
I
Just-
do enjoy that the Gray's
Press-
kids
yes.
all have like
Marley and
musician
Presley.
names.
And Hendrix.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. Well, what totally fits his persona that
It
we met
does.
in book one. 'Cause-
Well, I didn't care about that.
100%.
It just like you know that like he is the dude that plays music because like he
Yeah,
has-
you're like, those are his
Like,
kids.
it's an easy-
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's do our thumbs up, thumbs down. Leah, thumbs up, thumbs down.
It is definitely a thumbs up for me. I like this book. This actually was the first Carrie Elks I read, and then I went back and read other ones. But yeah, I really enjoyed this story a
Yeah.
lot.
Jenni, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Definitely thumbs up. Like, yeah, I'm gonna read the rest of them
Yeah.
eventually.
Thumbs up for me. Like that was even a question, right?
That was
I mean,
rhetorical.
I really
Right.
like Carrie Elks, and I think that she's one of those authors that people are sleeping on.
I would
But
agree.
she has a really nice, clean writing style too. Like
Yeah.
it's not bogged down. Like they're not super long. Like they're not super short, but they're not like overly long. They're not. The pages are not crowded with chaos.
You got a really great, solid story, and it wasn't 500 pages.
No, it was. Oh no, that's the wrong book. I was gonna say it was 300, but
So anyway, if people liked this book, the age gap, the small town, what other books might they like? I have a
Okay,
list, so you
I
go
have
first,
a
Leah.
couple. If you really like that small town thing, I don't love Lucy Score's new stuff, but her Blue Moon series, which is one of her like older series, like the small town aspect of it is like it's this really kitschy, quirky small town. I love that series. I have Mariah Ankenman's The Wedding Dilemma. They are becoming step siblings,
Oh, that's a
like,
good one.
and they have a meat disaster. He's a fireman, she's an artist. Like she's stuck in like her
In a
like,
body
her-
cast mold.
her plaster cast that she is trying to do.
Is
but
she
it
naked
is-
in the cast?
Well, you all have you all tend to be naked when you cast
I
yourself,
assume
but you have to
yourself.
cover yourself
Yeah.
to protect the goods. But you don't want clothes because then you get lumps and rolls that from the fabric that doesn't lay right.
She is naked under the cast. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and she gets stuck in it. It is a delightful book, but it has that like taboo element to it because like they're becoming step siblings, but they're not. And so, but I mean, it's a Mariah book, so it's delightfully cute.
Yeah. So Lauren Rowe's new one, Finding Home, that is an age gap. My Favorite Kidnapper by Melanie Moreland is age
yeah.
gap. If you like small town and age gap, Vanessa Vale's series, the Manhunt series
On a
has
Manhunt
it.
series. Yeah.
Manscape kind of has that forbidden because it's her ex's dad.
Yeah.
In that book.
Well, kind of X.
Kind of
Not really
X.
X.
What Heals Us
It's
by
awkward.
Maggie Gates is another good age gap. Bourbon
Mhm.
Summer by Walker Rose. The Tease by Lauren Blakely. Anyway, if you like age gap romances, there are a couple of listicles over on our website. Ones where she's older, ones where he's older, some just in general.
Well, in Walker's series, book 1 is they were foster siblings, so it has that taboo element to it also.
What do you have, Jenni? Do you have any?
I can't like think off the top of my head.
That's okay.
One of these days, I'm going to come prepared.
Eh. Why? Where would be the fun in that?
I don't know.
Where would be fun in that?
I mean, I have made it this far in life
Right.
without being prepared. So,
and I'm sure
That's why we have Becky.
I'm sure that next week's episode will be long too, because again, we're talking about books that I love or that I want you to read. So these episodes, of course, are going to be longer because I have so many things I have to say about these books. So,
Sure.
Thank you everybody for sticking with us for this episode. That's a wrap on this episode. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into That One Regret by Carrie Elks. We are back Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the YouTube, and afterwards we'll be in your podcast feed. The topic Sunday is it fanfic or is it retelling? And I think we have to figure out what the name of that rule is.
Yes, we do.
Anyway, tune in so you can know what the name of the rule is.
Because we do not.
We can't remember the name.
We will educate you.
Next week we're diving
it
in.
is daylight savings on Sunday. Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah.
We spring forward.
Spring ahead.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll be here.
My
It'll be great.
takeaway was, thank goodness it's not a swim meet weekend.
Right.
Because that would be horrible.
Oh, and thank goodness the girl child doesn't work at 5:30 in the morning on Sundays.
Oh, suck.
Yeah, that would really suck. Next week, we're here on Wednesday night, and we're going to deep dive into my all-time absolute favorite. Will accept no criticism, but I will for that episode only.
Episode only.
And only for brief moments, and then I'll probably cut you off and tell you why you're wrong. We are going to read Whitney, My Love by Judith McNaught. And Jenni, I actually read an author's note. We'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
It opens on an author's note. Anyway.
Oh, so that's what you read.
That was very insightful. So that's what we have going on. You can always check out buzzingaboutromance.com for a list of upcoming books and discussions. Anything else I'm forgetting?
I don't think so.
Sign up for our newsletter. We're trying to give some books away. We need people
We are, yes.
We have books to give away.
Some big name fan hardcovers to give away. So
yeah. Anyway.
I do have a couple people that have entered.
Join our newsletter. Until next time, everybody.
Happy reading, everybody. Bye.